Okie doke. And thank you for joining me. In today's video, what I'd like to do is go over a few sentences, and in these sentences, you're going to need to apply some of what you've learned in mastering English to polish them, to correct them essentially. All right, we're looking for capitalization in this regard and punctuation. Spelling is going to be a non-issue just in these examples, unless I make a mistake, which I'm not intending to do. All right, okie doke. For the first sentence that I'm going to ask you to correct, let's go ahead and take a look at a fairly simple sentence where we have, you are late, he shouted. Okie dokie, and I apologize in advance for my handwriting. Please pause the video and make any and all corrections to the sentence that you feel are necessary. Once you're ready, go ahead and hit resume and we'll correct it together. Okie doke, let's go ahead and correct it. So here you'll notice the beginning of my sentence is missing a capital. So you must always include capitalization for the beginning of a new sentence. So you are late, he shouted. Scanning the rest of the sentence, I'm not seeing any proper nouns or names in this case that require capitalization, so I think with that regard, we're okay. However, I can see that we're missing a few punctuation marks. So hopefully you were able to see that you are late, he shouted. Hopefully you're able to identify two separate clauses, and here I'll highlight both. So you are late is the first clause. The second part is he shouted. So while this is one sentence, there are two technical sentences, technically there are two sentences embedded in the one. So you are late, he shouted. So as indicated here through context, you can tell that we're being expressive. When you're shouting, you know to end with a, or rather to showcase that, using an exclamation mark. Let me go ahead and just remove those markings, just for some room. So, where are we going to put the exclamation mark? Will I end it here? No, because in this example sentence, that is not what is being shouted. This is merely the part of the sentence that is telling you that, in this case, this person is shouting. Well, what is it that they shouted? Well, that's where you need to look at the sentence. You are late is what he shouted. So this is where the exclamation mark belongs. All right. Now you're wondering, well, I ended with a punctuation mark in the middle of a sentence, which means now I should rightfully capitalize the next word since I'm starting another sentence. Technically not, because in this sentence, we have dialogue. This is what is being said. And to showcase that, you must include quotation marks, which are wrapped around only the part of the sentence that the person, or in some cases people, are saying. Here we have, you are late, wrapped around the sentence, or part of the sentence, that this person is, in this case, shouting. Now, you'll see we're still missing punctuation marks, because I have a complete sentence, but I haven't ended it. So you'll see at the very end, you are late, he shouted, should end with a period. However, there's also a pause. So, you are late, he shouted. Very slight, very subtle, but the comma is going to come right after the quotation mark. So let me go ahead and just move that quotation mark a little bit to the left so you can see the differentiation or the difference. So you end within the exclamation mark, within the quotation marks with an exclamation mark, so here, and then after, so you close the quotes, and then a pause following that quote. So you are late. So what was shouted, comma, he shouted, period. All right, that was a lot. Let's go ahead and take a look at a second sentence. So for this second example, we have the dog's house is clean. All right, once again, go ahead and pause the video, make any and all corrections that you are able to find, and resume so that we can correct it together. Excuse me, very dry. All right, so I'm assuming you've resumed and you're ready to jump in. So let's go ahead and take a look. So you'll notice, again, as with any sentence, you need to begin with a capital. So I'm going to take my indefinite article, the, and capitalize it. So the dog's house is clean. Now, I scan the rest of the sentence. I don't see any proper nouns or any other words requiring a capital. So I'm going to move forward with my next set of corrections. So the dog's house is clean, period. We're making a statement. It's not interrogative, which requires a question mark, and it's not exclamatory, which ends with an exclamation mark. Instead, it's a very simple set of facts that I'm sharing with you. However, we also have the dog's house. So you'll notice that DOGS is the plural, or more than one, of a dog. So if I were to consider that point when reading it as the dog, so the many dogs, house is clean. Well, you could look at it that way, like, oh, we're talking about all these dogs who have a house, and it's clean. However, if we're talking about more than one dog, and we want to show that something belongs to them or they possess something, the rule is to use an apostrophe. However, for a plural, meaning if it's more than one dog and they own something, you would end the word, excuse me, let me switch over. You would follow the S of the plural for dogs, with an apostrophe to show that all these dogs own the house. However, for my example, I intended only to show that there was one dog, a singular, right? One for the dog, and he owns, in this case, or excuse me, the house. So DOG apostrophe S to show that the dog, singular, owns the house, which is clean. Okay, very simple. Let's go ahead and look at a third example. All right, for this third example, we have, why would she do that? He yelled. Okay, there's a few things at play here. Go ahead and pause, make your corrections, and jump back into the video so that we can correct it together. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the sentence. So, for this sentence, as with all the others, you will need to begin with a capital. So I'll capitalize the first word in the sentence. Why would she do that? He yelled. Now, listening to the sentence out loud, you should be able to identify two separate clauses, just like we had in the first sentence, within sentence number 3. So, why would she do that is the first clause, followed by he yelled. So two disparate parts of the sentence. Now, for this first part, because it was indicated, so I'm being relatively explicit in the part that I'm underlining. So he yelled. We have whoever he is, right, this pronoun, referring to a set of commentary, things that in this case are being said, so dialogue. So with that, I know that in order to showcase dialogue, I need to include quotation marks. But where do the quotation marks wrap around? Where would I put them? Well, reread the sentence as often as you need to think more critically about what this person in this example is saying. Well, why would she do that? He yelled. He probably didn't say this part. He yelled. So it makes sense for me instead to put the quotation marks around the first clause. Why would she do that? He yelled. Now, in the first clause, I hear a question, right? Maybe a question that doesn't actually intend to have an answer, okay? Still, it's a question, and as such, it needs to be treated that way. So you would end that question with a question mark. Why would she do that? He yelled. However, you'll notice that here, I'm including the fact that she's yelling it. So you could also, it's not a requirement, but it's probably a good idea. So let me go ahead and restore that highlight. You could also, let me get rid of the red. Oh, looks like I'm not gonna be able to do it. Let me just put it back. Okay, you could also end it with a question mark followed by an exclamation mark to show that it was both a question and it was a question in which you are, a question you are exclaiming. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of energy behind it. So you could have, question mark, exclamation mark, side by side, working together. Still ending with the quotation mark. Why would she do that? Comma, pause. So after the quotation mark, he yelled. Now again, even though we did conclude, just like in this one, where we concluded with a punctuation mark and we started the next clause, you don't actually, again here, we concluded, started the next clause, you don't capitalize the next word in the next clause because it's technically one sentence. So treat it that way, even though there's two sentences embedded within. Okay, so those are, let me go ahead and just stop my share. This is a great way for you to apply what you're learning and have a little bit of fun as you go. Correcting sentences or sentence correction is just a really good way to identify perhaps some errors on your end. Maybe you aren't quite applying something the way that you should, and so you would go back and study a little bit more closely the thing that you seem to be lagging behind. So it's a way to kind of catch our weak points and maybe highlight some strengths that we have. So anywho, thank you for joining me. I look forward to the next one. Oh, and I constantly forget to say this, but if you would subscribe or like the video, it would help me out a lot. All right, thank you.